Hi, I'm Derek. Welcome to Mendix Malt. On this episode of Mendix Malt, I've got Timothy Vera with me. And we're going to be diving into the insurance industry and exploring how Mendix can play a role in that industry that's facing a lot of change at this moment.
Thank you for calling Digital Client Engagement Contact Center. To continue in English, please press 1. Please be advised that all calls are, if your call relates to policy, please press 1. Please stay on the line for our next available consultant. We are unable to attend to your call right now.
Alright, so the insurance industry doesn't really invoke kind of excitement in a lot of people, I must say.
I almost fell asleep.
But the reason is that it's really been the same for the last, say, 100 years. You still have people going out to sell insurance. But why this is relevant for this video is that there's a lot of kind of figuring out of where we're going in the next little while, in the next 10 to 20 years. They're trying to figure out if people will buy directly. We're trying to figure out if people will buy different kinds of products enabled by IoT devices. There's a lot of capital flowing into the space now, and a lot of experimentation.
Well, it sounds like the industry is waiting for a bit of a disruptor.
Yeah, and then they're not sure whether it's going to be a big disruption or a slow introduction of new kind of technologies. You know, it is a slow-moving industry because of its nature. But why it's relevant for this video is that Mendix really is going to play a big role in the next phase of the life insurance industry.
Speaking about experimentation, let's go get some beer.
Sounds good.
I've got a Darling Brewery Bone Crusher. Darling Brewery is a microbrewery, obviously based in Darling. It's about 80 kilometers from Comotion's Cape Town office. And they named this beer, it's a Wit beer. They named it Bone Crusher after the hyena. Apparently, the hyena is one of the more social animals.
That's fascinating.
So apparently you're supposed to drink this while listening to Jimi Hendrix. So I'll link a few Jimi Hendrix tracks below. And if you're in the area, you can get yourself a Bone Crusher and listen to some music. What have you got?
Awesome. So I've got the Skeleton Coast IPA. It's made by Jack Black, which is a brewery in the south of Cape Town, on the other side of town to where our Comotion offices are. It is a barely drinkable IPA, the driest thing you can get, and tastes something like death, which is why it's called the Skeleton Coast.
Speaking about death, reminds us of the enterprise IT industry.
Yeah, but we don't admit that. Yeah, it's awesome. So we wanted to talk about why Mendix is going to be important in the life insurance industry. I think this is quite a key thing. So what's happening now is that there's a lot of capital flowing into experimenting with new business models in the insurance industry. So that means that you want to try something, get to a working prototype quickly, fail fast, figure out what the problems are, and try again, right?
Mendix is an extremely powerful tool for this approach, and it's powerful for two reasons. The first reason is that development within Mendix is extremely rapid. The second reason is that deploys through the one-click approach are enterprise-grade ready deploys. In other words, you can feel comfortable by letting your users actually use the system, and you can take it from a prototype phase to an actual legitimate deployment phase without having to re-engineer everything in between. I kind of think of Mendix as like having a very powerful fire hose that blasts a lot of water out. It's very powerful, but it doesn't mean much if it's not pointed in the right direction.
so what we want to talk a little bit about now is what are the kind of questions that you have to ask before you start your first microphone. Now, hopefully, these questions have been discussed before the Mendix model arrives. But I think it's useful to know the kind of things that you, as the Mendix modeler, must ask that are not actually directly related to the microflows and the views. So the first thing that you have to ask is, what are the hypotheses that you're testing with a particular model? Now, the hypotheses are the assumptions that you're making about the world and about the way that people will interact with your solution. They're the things that will make it different from what is being done in the past. The second thing is the context. The context is very important. Now, I like to think of context as a series of concentric circles. The outer circle is the broadest context that you have to consider, and that's usually linked to the country that you're in and the regulatory environment. Now, in the life insurance industry in particular, this is very important. It certainly drives the way that you interact with your customers to a large degree. The next circle in is the market, and who will be either using the system that you build, or ultimately the customers that will be influenced by the system that you build. You have to think about how they're willing to interact with the system. You have to think about their world. You have to think about what are the things that they're thinking about. The next circle in is ultimately the company. The company is all the internal processes that are going to be influenced by your product and by your system. The third question that you have to ask is, what is the MVP? Now, the M does not stand for Mendix. The M stands for minimum, and MVP means minimum viable product. This is the smallest product that you can put out into the market that will test the hypotheses that you've identified up front. The fourth question that you have to ask is, what are the things that you want to measure? If I come up with a new way to purchase insurance, there's a couple of things that I want to measure. I want to measure engagement with the product. I want to measure how many people ultimately went through the process to purchase that product. And you have to decide upfront what are the measurements and what are some of the targets that you want to be looking for in the early parts of the MVP. So, for instance, your conversion rate from someone starting the process to someone ending the process.
Comotion has built a life application system in the past. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we built it from the ground up in a couple of months for a client that needed something quite specific for their policy administration.
And tell us a little bit about the lessons you learned in that process.
Yeah, so there's two ways that you can really approach building a system like that. You can either integrate with a system of record at the back, and that's generally what larger companies will do. But this company really couldn't afford to have two separate systems, so we actually built the policy record and everything to do with the life policy directly into Mendix. Now, the benefits of doing something like that are huge, because ultimately you have Mendix covering right from your policy record all the way through to the front end. So we were able to very rapidly make changes and the like. And I think the lesson for us is that the more you can include in the core Mendix model, the easier it becomes to make changes.
Right. Cool. Well, thank you for coming on board. Thanks for joining us in this version of Mendix Malt, and cheers.
Cheers.
Until next time. Cheers.
Yeah. No. What's funny about the laughs?
I just remembered to smile. That's all.